Welcome back to Sleeping Shrine. Tonight, we're setting aside the swords and scrolls and stepping into the kitchens and fields of Tokugawa, Japan. This isn't the history of samurai battles or castle intrigue. It's about rice and soup and pickled vegetables. It's about what it meant to eat in a time when every grain had meaning. Because in the Edo period, food wasn't just food. It was politics. From the lowest farmer to the shogun himself, every meal was a quiet expression of your place in society. And eating the wrong thing could be more dangerous than saying the wrong thing. So if you're ready, let's begin with the daily life of someone who grew the food, but didn't often get to enjoy it. The year is 1753. You are a farmer in the Japanese countryside. You rise with the sun, stretch your legs, and feel the quiet weight of the season. Your work today will look almost identical to yesterday. It will involve mud and back pain and patience. Because your job is rice. Not eating it, producing it. Your diet is made mostly of barley. Boiled barley mixed with a few grains of rice. It was a good harvest. Breakfast and dinner are nearly the same. A bowl of barley. Maybe a bit of miso soup, cloudy and thin. A piece of pickled radish. Protein is rare. Once a week, maybe twice, a piece of dried fish or tofu stewed in soy sauce. Your bowl is wooden. Your chopsticks are reused and worn smooth by years of use. You don't waste anything. If a grain of rice falls, you retrieve it. If the miso is too watery, you drink it anyway. You eat what's available, and you eat with care. Not because you're trying to be humble, because you have no choice. Your rice is taxed, measured, weighed, and sent off to your local lord's granary. Rice is not just food to eat, it's tribute. The taxes are paid in rice, the stipends issued in rice. The fortunes of entire clans rise and fall on rice production. And so, most of what you grow will never see your table. You don't complain. You just chew slowly, staring at the wall or out across the fields where the next planting is always waiting. Food is not pleasure, it is maintenance. And a reminder of your place. Meanwhile, in Edo, the great city, food is still politics, just in a different costume. The Tokugawa shogunate had a very clear idea of what stability meant. It meant everyone staying in their lane. And food helped enforce that. Sumptuary laws dictated what you could eat. Samurai, for example, were allowed polished white rice. Not because it tasted better, but because it was clean, refined, and symbolic of their rank. Merchants, who often had more money than samurai, were still expected to eat more humbly. If they served extravagant meals, they could be fined or worse. Too much flavor, too much variety, these weren't just indulgences. They were social climbing. And that was dangerous. Restaurants were watched. Tea houses that became too luxurious could be investigated. Even the ingredients mattered. If something was too rare, like sugar, imported from Okinawa, it was suspect. Not forbidden entirely, but reserved for the few. Every dish had to reflect your station. Every bowl, your behavior. Even if you could afford extravagance, you were not allowed to flaunt it. Rice, the most central food of all, was both sustenance and symbol. It was measured in kokutha, amount needed to feed one person for a year. Samurai were paid in koku. Daimyo were ranked by their domain's koku output. And commoners, ironically, saw little of it themselves. Rice didn't just feed people, it defined them. And that definition extended to the table. Because eating in Edo, Japan was never casual. It was ritual. And it was watched. A proper meal followed unspoken rules. You did not slouch. You did not speak before the host. You bowed to the food. You picked up your rice bowl with both hands. Soup came second. Side dishes were eaten in a specific order. You didn't serve yourself. You didn't compliment the cook directly. You showed appreciation by eating precisely, neatly. Gratefully, a samurai's meal might include white rice, grilled fish, pickled vegetables, and soup. Not much, but it wasn't about fullness. It was about restraint. Refinement was not in the ingredient, it was in the behavior. Now imagine being invited to a kaiseki meal, a multi-course experience that mirrored the seasons. Each dish arrived one at a time. A piece of simmered pumpkin in winter, a lotus root carved like a chrysanthemum. In autumn, the flavors were light, balanced, measured. The meal was not about satisfying hunger. It was about evoking a mood, a place, a time of year, and it culminated in the tea ceremony. Perhaps the most structured meal in Japan. You sat in silence. You were served a small, delicate sweet often, shaped like a seasonal flower. You admired it. You ate it slowly. Then came the matcha, prepared carefully, poured deliberately, whisked with practiced grace. You turned the bowl. You sipped. You wiped the rim. You bowed. Everything had its moment, its motion, its meaning, and then at the very top the meals that no one else even saw, in the kitchens of the shogun himself. Food became artifice. The most expensive rice, the finest cuts of fish. Sake aged in silence. Vegetables carved like poetry. Each tray was not just nourishment, but messaging. It said, I control distance. I control time. I control what the seasons bring, even when they should not. The shogun might eat sweetened chestnuts in February, or cool tofu in autumn, because he stood above the seasons, because nothing in nature dictated his table. He had cooks, dozens of them, serving courses in silence, gauging reactions that were never spoken aloud. Everything, even a garnish, was symbolic, and yet, across the rest of Japan, meals remained humble. Boiled millet, miso soup. Maybe some greens, and if it was a festival, a sweet made with red bean, or a rice ball wrapped in bamboo. These were the meals of daily life, of people who worked long days, ate quickly, and dreamed of being full. Food in Tokugawa Japan was never just about the body. It was about society. It was about place. It was about knowing who you were and showing it so as you lie still tonight. And imagine the quiet clatter of bowls in the half-light of a paper-screened room. Remember that every grain told a story, that every meal was a performance, and that in a world without microphones, without declarations, without revolt, sometimes a piece of pickled plum was the most political thing of all. We won't be climbing temple steps or sitting beside a daimyo's lacquered desk. Instead, we'll be watching broth simmer. We'll hear the soft crackle of pork fat, feel the steam rising off a bowl in a narrow alleyway, and we'll follow. A dish that crossed borders, changed names, and slowly became one of Japan's most iconic meals. This is the story of ramen. But not just the ramen, you know, the packaged kind in the back of your cupboard, or the bowl that arrives in a cloud of miso and noodles. This is the story of how it got there. How a humble soup from China became a Japanese staple, a late-night comfort, a post-war lifeline, and eventually an emblem of the nation itself. Like all good broths, it took time. So settle in, breathe deeply, and let's begin where the steam first rose. The year is 1884. You are in Yokohama. The port has been open to the world for just 25 years. The air is full of salt, sea, coal, and something unfamiliar: garlic, soy, oil. Down a side street from the docks, in a cluster of ramshackle stalls run by Chinese laborers, someone is stirring a pot. Smells, ... confusing. Wheat noodles float. In a salty broth, a few slices of roast pork. Maybe bamboo shoots. Maybe nothing at all. There's no soft egg, no artistic swirl of narutomaki, and certainly no Instagram. This is China soba, Chinese soba. The word ramen doesn't even exist yet. And if you're Japanese, you probably haven't tasted it. Not because it's forbidden, but because it's foreign. And in Majira, Japan, that still means suspect. Still, curiosity lingers. The idea of foreign food is beginning to spread slowly. In big cities, Western restaurants serve omers and curry. But Chinese food that belongs to the laborers, the migrants, the in-between people. It's food eaten standing up. Food that's too oily, too garlicky, too fast. It doesn't fit into traditional Japanese cuisine, which values balance, quietness, restraint. But it sticks around. By the early 20th century, Shina soba becomes a working-class favorite, especially in cities, especially for men who need something quick and hot at the end of a long shift. It's salty, it's filling, and it's cheap. Street stalls begin to appear across Tokyo and Osaka. Pushcarts, really called yatai. You hear them before you see them. The clang of bowls, the call of the vendor, the hiss of broth against metal. You step up. Sit on a worn bench. Get a bowl for 5 sen. It's not elegant, but it's honest, and that's enough. Still, ramen has no recipe yet. No national form. It changes from block to block. Sometimes with soy sauce, sometimes with salt, sometimes no soup at all. Every vendor adds their own touch, maybe chicken fat, maybe sardine powder, maybe just more noodles. And because it's not bound by tradition, it can evolve, quietly, patiently. World War II halts much of that. Rice shortages, food rationing, government crackdowns. Street food becomes suspect, even illegal. The black market thrives, and ramen goes underground, but it doesn't disappear. After the war ends, Japan is hungry literally, and ramen will return, but not as you knew it before. It's about to be reborn in a very different form. The year is 1948. Japan is on its knees. Cities are still recovering from firebombs. Markets are empty. Rice is scarce. And black market ramen stalls, once symbols of comfort, are now illegal under U.S. occupation food policies. Into this mess walks a man named Momofuku Ando, not a chef, not a farmer, not even a food expert. He's a businessman, Taiwanese-born, Japanese naturalized, and already familiar with failure. Before the war, he sold textiles. After the war, he tried to build houses for returning soldiers. None of it worked. But one day, in post-war Osaka, he passed a ramen stall and stopped. He saw the line. Dozens of people waiting for one hot bowl. Not just for the taste, but for the warmth, the fullness, the memory of better days. And something clicked. What if anyone nowhere could make that warmth at home? What if ramen didn't require a shop or a skilled hand or a lucky night when the cart was nearby? What if it was a package? So he began. In a wooden shed behind his house. No budget, no factory, just trial and error. He boiled noodles, flavored. Broths, tested preservatives. But the breakthrough came with oil. One evening, he watched his wife frying tempura. And he noticed something. The batter bubbled. The water disappeared. But the structure remained. He tried it on noodles, cooked them, then flash fry them. And when he poured hot water over them later, they rehydrated. They sprang back to life. It was simple, and it was genius. By 1958, the first packaged instant ramen hit shelves. It was called chicken ramen, not chicken, because it sounded modern, foreign, new. It came in a block. Pre-seasoned, just add boiling water. At first, it was expensive more than fresh ramen. But people were curious. They liked the idea of convenience. They liked the warmth in 3 minutes. And slowly, it took off. Mothers bought it for tired nights. Office workers stashed it in drawers. Students, of course, devoured it. Ando kept innovating. In 1971, he introduced cup noodles and instant ramen you could cook in its own container. It didn't even need a bowl. It was perfect for modern life, for small kitchens, for tiny apartments. 4 bullet trains. Ramen, once a migrant soup, had become the food of Japan's future. And Momofuku Ando became something close to a legend. He lived to 96. When asked the secret to his long life, he said, "Play golf and eat instant ramen." He believed food should be convenient and nourishing and joyful, but most of all, it should be available to anyone. And so he took a street dish and made it a national one. Not by elevating it, but by bringing it home. You might think that. By the 1970s, ramen had one. It was everywhere on shelves, in office drawers, steaming in student dorms. But even then, ramen still wasn't. Respectable, not to the culinary elite, not to traditionalists, not to the government. Because in Japan, food is not just food. It's history, it's etiquette, it's identity. And Ramen quick, greasy, adaptable, broke to many rules. It had no fixed recipe, no lineage traced through temples or tea masters. It borrowed Chinese roots, but added pork. It mixed miso with lard. It ignored the quiet subtlety of Japanese cuisine. It didn't pair with rice. It didn't come with side dishes. It was too loud, too oily, too modern. In fact, for decades, high-end restaurants refused to serve it. Culinary schools didn't teach it. Even food critics avoided it. It was seen as food for construction workers, students, drunks. It wasn't part of Washokutha traditional Japanese diet, later named a UNESCO intangible heritage. And yet, ramen endured, because ramen never needed permission. It grew underground. In tiny alley shops, late-night counters, open kitchens, places with no signs, no uniforms, no seating sometimes. It was food by the people, for the people. And slowly, the outsiders, the rebels, began to shape it. In Sapporo, someone thickened the broth with miso and corn. In Kyushu, pork bones were boiled until the liquid turned milky white. In Tokyo, soy sauce ruled. In Okinawa, they added local vegetables and spice. No central committee decided these things. No ministry blessed them. But ramen began to reach, not like formal kaiseki dishes passed down with ceremony, but like dialects, casual, unwritten, deeply local. And something strange happened. Young chefs, many trained abroad, began returning to Japan in the 1990s and early 2000s not to cook French food, not to recreate haute cuisine, but to open ramen shops, not stalls. Shops, minimalist, focused, monastic. They elevated the broth to an art form, aged the soy sauce, filtered the water, sourced flour from specific prefectures, and suddenly, ramen became refined. Still affordable, still fast, but now serious. The critics began to take notice. Food magazines ran features. Documentaries were made. Tourists lined up. And in 2015, a Michelin star was awarded to a ramen shop in Tokyo. Suda tiny, unpretentious, serving truffle oil shoyu ramen in under 15 minutes. Ramen had arrived, not because it was accepted by tradition, but because it refused to wait for it. Because it fed the hungry before it impressed the powerful. Because in every bowl, you can still taste the steam from that first street stall, the broth from the pushcart, the powdered seasoning in a cup noodle. All of it is ramen, and all of it belongs. It's late. The last train has already pulled out of Shinjuku Station. Neon signs still flicker overhead, but the crowds have thinned. Office workers are gone. Tourists are asleep. The streets are quieter now, just the occasional hum of a taxi or the soft hiss of a vending machine. Down a side alley, one of the narrow ones, the kind with crates for chairs, you see a red curtain fluttering, barely lit. No sign in English. Maybe no sign at all. You duck under the curtain. The door slides open. Inside, it's just a counter. 8 seats, all taken. No music, just the sound of broth simmering and chopsticks gently tapping the rim of ceramic bowls. You nod to the chef. He nods back. No menu, no questions. You sit. A glass of cold water is placed in front of you. A few minutes pass. You listen to the soft slurp of the person next to you. You smell pork fat, soy, something slightly smoky. And then it arrives. A deep white bowl. Pale yellow noodles. Shoyu broth dark, glossy, slightly sweet. 2 slices of chashu pork, melting at the edges. A marinated egg, yolk soft and golden. A square of nori, single curl of green onion. You lift a bowl, tilt it toward you. The steam fogs your glasses. The first sip is quiet. Not just salty layered, soy, chicken, a hint of dried fish. Then the noodles, firm but not hard. Springy, you don't speak. No one does. That's not what this place is for. This is a shrine to comfort, to memory, to simplicity. This shop might have opened yesterday or 50 years ago. It doesn't matter. Because ramen shops like this exist in every part of Japan. Not tourist spots, not chain stores. Just corners where time slows down, where someone still tends to broth at midnight. And where the quiet steam rising from a single bowl can make you feel just for a moment that everything will be okay. Ramen was never just food. It was invention. It was resistance. It was warmth when rice was gone and identity when Japan was changing too fast to name it. It was never official, never elegant, but it endured. And now, in homes, vending machines, alleyways, and even first-class kitchens, ramen waits 3 minutes or 10 hours, hot or instant, for anyone who needs it. Thank you for spending this quiet hour with us. We'll see you again soon for more boring history. Good night.